Hi, everyone. So, the first thing that we're going to discuss today is Chapter 3 and the Principles of Program Evaluation. And I really enjoyed this section because it talked about how to create goals and to also help you understand the bigger picture in your program. So, for example, my overarching learning goal is very important to helping me understand what the needs of the students are. If I am focused on my goal, in my teaching, that's what's going to help me know what material that I need to teach them and is also very helpful. The next topic was a vision and how it's important to have ambitious goals because goals are what help the group know what you want for them and know what things are important in their life to help them learn more material. And the next one is about how the next point that I wanted to talk about is how to review those goals and to make sure that I'm focusing on those goals when I'm teaching the material. The purpose statement that I chose that just for fun that I thought was interesting was the purpose of the workshop is to help people have healthy relationships. And if I understand my purpose, then I'm going to know what I need to teach the people to help them have a healthier relationship. And the next topic that I wanted to talk about was questions. And questions were really important in the discussion. I noticed that the questions I asked that were more simple and to the point, the participants were much more willing to share information and to talk about the things that I was teaching them. Whereas some of the other questions that were more complex, it was harder for the participants because they didn't understand the question. So what I'm going to work on is helping the students by choosing questions that are simpler and easier and more to the point. What I learned in the book about questions is it helps evaluate the objectives and to help me know, does this question help meet my goal? And if it does, then I'll keep this question. If not, then it doesn't. And that's what I'm going to try to work on for this next workshop. And the next part in the reading that I noticed was about logic models and how logic models help me understand concepts. And in helping me understand these concepts, it's also going to help the students understand these concepts to help encourage them to learn the material and to simplify the material as the more that I teach. The next section that I thought was really interesting was the appendix and how there's many different um, principles that help us understand ethics and family life education. There's three main points. One of them is relational ethics, which is pretty much how people are interacting with each other. It's people's relationship in the office. It's how they're talking with each other and collaborating with each other on different concepts and ideas. The next concept or principle, or the next topic that we're going to talk about is the principles approach and how I love the principles approach because when I'm conducting a workshop, it helps me to know it helps me to think, oh, what principle am I going to teach to help my participants learn and understand the material better. And the next one that I really loved was virtue ethics. And in my mind, what I learned from ethics was I need to be everything that I want my students to be. And I need to have these virtues to help me be a better educator, to help my students learn the material, and to help them progress in their life by teaching them this material. The next topic was rules and how there's many different rules that an educator needs to follow, and one of the principles that stood out to me was that families are very complex. And I think that's true because families are so complex, we need principles to help us discern their needs and to help them learn the material better. And if we are able to apply these principles in the in the classroom, then we can help them in a very monumental way. And the way we can help them by understanding these principles is by helping them succeed. And that's why we have these principles, is to help them succeed as students. Next topic that I thought was very interesting was about professional ethics and practice. And main things that I learned was about how many of the ethical principles were contradictory of each other, and it was very difficult to know what kind of principles are needed to help assess the situation with the family members so that we can know what to do to help them. And some of the principles that I thought were interesting was help the students apply the truth. If we don't teach them the truth, then it's not going to help them. And one thing that I noticed that I thought was hard is people with religious values are struggling to teach people that may not have these religious values, but these religious values would help them more than anything. And so it's very difficult for, I think, religious instructors to not incorporate religious ideas and concepts to help the students learn. Now, in my opinion, if we use religious concepts without referring to God or Jesus Christ, then it'd be appropriate. But if we were to impose our religious values on them, it may make it harder for them to learn the material, especially if they come from a different religious background. And I want to make sure that I respect people's religious views, even if I disagree. And so that's what's really important too, is finding appropriate uh, ideas to help them learn and understand the material. Now, another thing that I think stood out to me is make sure that if that the church, the the separation between church and state is super important. Uh, Making sure that we teach material that if when I'm an educator in a high school, that I do that because that's important and helping the students learn the material. And that's the main reason that we're doing it. The next section I thought was my favorite, and it was about ethics and how helping people make decisions and to solve problems. And these steps help students a great deal, but I think they help educators even more. And the main steps are to identify the relationships with everyone. So you need to make sure you understand the student's relationship with their family members. You need to understand their family background and things like that. The next one is applying principles, and those things are extremely important in helping the students understand the material. Is you make sure that you are respecting the parents' decisions, that you're living all the principles that you're teaching them. The next one is identify the conflict, which can be hard. It can be hard, especially if it may be only one person and how they're interacting with their family members. It's much better to have a whole family there if you're teaching just a family so that you can understand everything from all sides. And it's much easier to identify conflict when people are honest and they're communicating with you all the details and all the facts. The next step was finding a solution based off of the conflict that you understand. And if you can find a solution, that pretty much is just finding the answer to the problem. And the next step is doing it. You are making a choice of what to do. The next thing that I thought was very interesting was about boundaries and helping parents and family life education to understand these boundaries that you're creating. And there's many different levels of helping students learn the material, as well as what is therapy and what is education. And these levels help us discern what they are. And my favorite one was information and advice. And that's the one that I'm going to use to help communicate the information better to my students when I'm teaching them. And the next concept was about boundaries in family life education. And this actually critiqued the principles, and some of the information was very interesting about family life education and about how communicating and helping students understand how they develop as humans is also helpful for them. And thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you listening. Have a wonderful day.